Yeah, hello. Thanks for coming. And I just make a very quick introduction to myself and then to the project, and then we are starting. Yeah, I'm Austrian. I was living in Upper Austria in Vienna a long time, and now living in Barcelona. And a few years ago, I fell into the rabbit hole of Bitcoin, and I couldn't escape anymore. And at some point, I started with the idea to build a decentralized Bitcoin exchange, because I thought it was a missing link in the Bitcoin ecosystem, that you have a decentralized money system, but not a decentralized exchange. So I was trying to solve this problem and got surprised that it seems it's possible to solve it, and even more surprised that it seems that I could solve it, and start working on it. And now it's already 3.5 years, and it's the project already out since 1 year, and yeah, we'll talk more about this. How many of you have already bought or sold Bitcoin or purchased Bitcoin? Nearly everybody, wow. So, how many of you know Bitsquare? Probably nobody. Oh, wow. And how many of you have traded? I think most of you who have ever purchased Bitcoin have probably traded over a centralized exchange like Kraken or Poloniex or whatever. And the usual, I don't need to explain you maybe, but maybe for the few people who have not bought Bitcoin yet, the usual way is that you register the company. It's basically like a bank. You have to register with your ID and passport and whatever they want. And then after you get verified, you can open your account. You have to put in your money. So when you want to buy Bitcoin, you have to send them the euro. And then they are holding your money and so, and then when you take out your Bitcoin, then you get your Bitcoin. But when something in this time happens, some accident, like a hacker discover this server and see that, okay, there's a lot of Bitcoin and a lot of money there. And this happens from time to time in the Bitcoin space. The most famous were Mt. Gox, where I don't remember how many, but a few hundred millions got stolen. Then, of course, your Bitcoin, then you discover that the Bitcoin, what you had there, and you thought it's your Bitcoin, it was not your Bitcoin, it was just a promise that maybe in future you can take out your Bitcoin, but when something happened in between, you never get out the Bitcoin. And many people got burned by this, and yeah, that's, from the security point of view, one of the main reasons why we thought, yeah, it's important to have a decentralized exchange where such a situation is not happening. And the other reason is that with Bitcoin, we are a little bit out of the banking system and of the governmental money system. It's a really decentralized money system like the internet. When you do something in the internet, you don't need to ask for permission at the political office if you can make your block. You just do it, and that's quite cool. With money, we are still living in this old world where everything is controlled and everything, yeah, it's very centralized, controlled. They all know your data, the bank basically, or the credit card company know all about your transaction. And I think that's a very critical element, because you are exposing a lot of your privacy, how you are spending, how you are dealing with your money. That tells a lot about the people. Maybe they're not so interested in you individually, but as a society in whole, they get a lot of valuable information out to better manipulate the people to their goals, and of course governance as well. Of course in Austria it's maybe not so critical because the government is great here, but in in Spain, and there is much worse, I can tell you, and many other countries are even much worse. So I think to have a system where we don't need to trust the government so much and the banks is something which we should try to achieve. So what is Bitsquare? Bitsquare is a desktop application. You just download it. It's available for all major operating systems. It's like an application like BitTorrent or whatever. You install it and you run it on your computer. It uses a peer-to-peer network, and it's running. The peer-to-peer network is running over Tor or Tor hidden services. You don't need to install anything, and if you don't know much about Tor, it doesn't matter. It just provides more privacy for you, because normally when you do anything in the web with your IP address, you are identified, because with a telecom provider, they know your name, they know your IP address, and when you're surfing to any web page, they know basically your identity that you're visiting. With Tor, you have the privacy, they don't see your IP address, and you have a way where you can navigate in the internet in a privacy protection way. It has nothing to do with criminals or terrorists. That's just bullshit marketing propaganda. Tor is just the security and the privacy layer. Like when you are accessing your banking webpage, you use something different, but which is similar. You are encrypting the data there, that nobody can hack the data, and your communication, and Tor is something similar, but even better.
The encryption just disguises the traffic flow. So the point about Tor is if you don't encrypt it, what you send across Tor, you are actually making a mistake because Tor offers no encryption whatsoever.
Exactly. It's encrypted by default, and yeah, you get a lot of privacy and security.
No, it's not encrypted by default.
Yeah, it is.
Not Tor exit. Here it's Tor.
We don't use Tor exit nodes. It's only hidden services, so it's only inside of the Tor network, and there everything what you send out gets encrypted in with every layer. And also Tor exit nodes are a little bit problematic because they're kind of like bottlenecks. And when you go out to an unencrypted, to a HTTP web page, then you are revealing, it's a little bit tricky. But in this system, it's not web-based, it's just application and protocol, and we are only using these Tor hidden services which don't need the exit nodes. Yeah, the application never holds the use of funds or data. So in Bitsquare, you never send money to me, and I have then millions of dollars or euro or Bitcoin, and then a hacker try to get this from me. That cannot happen because I never have the money. So it's always either on your wallet, on your computer locally, and of course you have to take care that you don't have a virus stealing your money there. When you don't take enough care and somebody steals your money, it's your bad luck, of course. But that would happen as well when you have your bank account and your password there, then it's also very dangerous for you. So computer security, basic computer security is a must-have when you deal with Bitcoin. And we don't hold any user data, so you don't need to register. I don't know who is using Bitsquare. You install your application, you run it, and that's it. There's no registration, there's no know your customer, AML process or whatever. And it's open source for technical people, as it's HGPL license, so everybody can port the project and do whatever they want. Basically, it's completely open. And then very important part is that it's not a company, it's not a startup, it's a decentralized autonomous organization. That will be the second part. I will then explain more in detail about this. But that's a new form of organization where people can work together, can create value together, can earn money with that together in a way which is compatible with this idea of decentralization. When you have such a peer-to-peer system of exchange, when I send Bitcoin to a stranger in the internet, of course, it's very easy to get scammed because they're anonymous. There's the barrier for getting scammed is much lower. So you have to build it in a way that you guarantee the security that you cannot get scammed. And that's provided by 3 elements basically in Bitsquare. One is the 2 of 3 multi-signature. I don't want to go too much in details because I think for the beginners it's a little bit too much technical. So just for the ones who know about this, they will know it. So it's basically something like a lockbox. So people can put in money into the lockbox, but to get out the lockbox you need a certain amount of keys. And when it's 2 or 3 multisig, that means there are 3 possible keys to unlock the lockbox and get out the money. And you need at least 2 keys to unlock it. And the 2 keys are usually the traders, so they put in the money, and for getting out the money, both traders are unlocking, and that's fine. And when anything happens, when there's a problem, there is an arbitrator, it's like a mediator, or somebody who helps, like a customer care basically, and they can contact him, and then he will check the case, try to find out what was going wrong. Usually it's technical problems or problems with banks or so. And then he helps to unlock the funds when one peer is, for instance, not cooperative or has disappeared. Then the arbitrator has 1 key. He cannot steal the key because he has only 1 key, but with the other trader he can make the signature for spending the money, for getting the money out of the system. And this money is in the blockchain. And that's a little bit a strange concept because it doesn't exist in the normal world. You are, as a Bitcoin transaction, is that you are sending to another address Bitcoin, and this other person has then the private key for the ability to spend the money again. With a multisig, you are distributing this to several persons. So usually the two traders and the arbitrator, they have all the keys, so they are sending to a special address the money, and nobody alone can ever spend this money. So it would be frozen forever. Only when two of these three people are cooperating and creating the signature, then they can spend the money and get out the money. And this is this multisig, which is something like an escrow. Usually you have like a notary, people where everybody trusts, so where it's very unlikely that they are scammers, and then you put the money in, and they are holding the money, and when everything goes fine, they are giving out the money. And we don't need, luckily, such roles anymore in Bitcoin because you can do it on the blockchain directly. And as I said, there is this arbitration system. That's just in case when something goes wrong. When it's a normal trade where everything goes fine, the arbitrator has no role at all. It's just when there are bugs or problems or whatever, then the arbitrator can help and can help to get out the money, and then the peer or the one who deserves the money. When I send you the euro and then you never reacted, or so you disappeared, and I can prove that I sent you the euro, then the arbitrator will help me that I get my Bitcoin out. Here I will just make a very quick overview. I don't expect that you 100% can follow it, but I want to keep it short because then the second part with DAO, I think it's a little bit more interesting. That's just a kind of like an overview how the trade process works. So you have two parts. Alice on the left side, she wants to buy Bitcoin, and Bob on the right side, he wants to sell Bitcoin. So Alice is creating an offer in the peer-to-peer network. It's just a form where she fills out and say, I want to buy 1 Bitcoin for this price in euro. And then she published this offer to the peer-to-peer network, and everybody can see this. Okay, there is somebody who wants to buy Bitcoin for this price. And Bob can see this offer, and when he thinks that's a good price, he can take this offer. So he clicks a button, okay, I will take this offer, I want to make the deal with Alice. And then over the peer-to-peer network, there's a handshake protocol, and both have to put in a security deposit. And I will explain a little bit later why the security deposit is important, but both have to put in, also the seller, Bob, has to put in the Bitcoin, what he's selling, and both have to put in extra some Bitcoin for securing the system. And this ends up in this multi-sig transaction, what I explained before, where it's locked up in the blockchain. The money is not in control of the user anymore. It's in control of this this group of key holders. And as soon as it's confirmed in the blockchain, Alice has then to pay the fiat amount to the other side, also the euro or the dollar. She gets over the application all the bank details, what she needs to make the transfer. So she goes, and that's out of system. She goes to her online banking webpage, fill in the data, send the money, and then she goes back to the application and click a button, I have sent the money. Bob receives then the money, this message from Alice that she has started the payment, and depending on the bank, it can take a few days until the money arrives. I don't know why it takes so long, but the banks only knows it. But they discover now the blockchain, so everything will be good in the future. After a few days or whatever, how long the bank requires to make the transfer, Bob has to check on his online banking webpage if he receives the money, and when he has received it, he clicks a button again, I received the money, and with that everything gets finalized. And when he clicks this button, the peer-to-peer network creates this transaction for the payout. So Alice and Bob use their private keys for making the signature for the payout, and then Alice receives the 1 Bitcoin, what she was wanting to buy. She has paid for this in euro, and both get back their security deposit. And the security deposit is important because in the first step, without any security deposit, when there would be only Bob's 1 Bitcoin locked up, then Alice could decide here that, yeah, she's lazy, maybe she forgot about it, or maybe the price has changed and she thinks, no, it's not a good deal, I just ignore it and I do nothing. And she has nothing to lose. I mean, it's anonymous in the internet, people are not so nice like in normal life. So, and yeah, to avoid this, that she has something on stake, that she has something to lose when she's not following the protocol, there is the security deposit. And on the other side, at the end, when Bob has received the money, here, he could say, okay, I'm happy, I have sold one Bitcoin, I've got the euro. For me, it's over. I don't click this button, I'm lazy. I don't care about that she gets her Bitcoin. And to incentivize him that he has a motivation to be correct and click the button and confirms this is also the security deposit. When he would not do this, then he would lose the security deposit in the arbitration. So then, when she would never receive this after a certain time, she can call the arbitrator, explain everything, the arbitrator can check the case. When you find out Bob has violated the protocol, then you will lose the security deposit.
So there is one error missing that she has to confirm to for Bob to get back.
Yeah. Also that protocol is much more complex.
Yeah, but here you have one error for receiving.
Actually, she's already sending a pre-signed transaction here. And Bob has already the pre-signed transaction because she cannot lose anything. She's just waiting for her money. And then he only needs to sign his input to the multisig and can publish it and this goes out. But in reality it's more complex like this, but try to make it the basic. Yeah, that's a few screenshots of the application. So it's used since 1 year. They've been traded, I think, something like 2,000 Bitcoin and 3,000 trades more or less. It's still not so big, it's still bootstrapping and we have a lot of work open still, but it's operational, it works, and yeah, the people who care about privacy and decentralization like it usually. And the second part is about this Decentralized Autonomous Organization, the Bitsquare DAO. To build, as it's not a company, it's hard to find people who are working for a project for free. Open source is fantastic and so, but it's not so much motivation for many people who need to earn the money or who want to earn the money that they're working for such a project with no or very little payment. I mean, we get donations and so on, but it's basically not, we don't have a funding model until yet, or there are no investors or so. And intentionally we went this road that we was not looking for investors like a normal startup, because the investor would then be a single point of failure. We want to keep it on the funding and not organizational level, also completely decentralized. And this idea of decentralized autonomous organization, I think it's a perfect fit for such a project. I will just give a very quick overview, very high level overview about the basic idea. There have been, maybe some of you have heard about the DAO a few years ago or so, this Ethereum Slockit DAO, and that with that the term became very public. Unfortunately, in my opinion, it was a completely bad idea and very broken from the very basic ideas. But for me, the term represents just very basic what the three words say. It's decentralized, it's an autonomous organization. So it's an organizational form which can live on its own, which does not need any boss, any legal entity, which lives in the internet, in the IT infrastructure, in the peer-to-peer network, and it's really decentralized. That's the core of it. And how to build this can look, there will be probably many different variations, how people implementing this idea, and I want to explain how our project look like. Maybe I should have changed this. Maybe I should start with the concept. So the basic concept is, for such a decentralized autonomous organization, usually you have a token, because you want to combine the human work, the human labor, with some IT system, with some networks, whatever. And to create incentives for human work, we use money usually. That's the classical incentivization mechanism. So when you have a token, which represents the value of the project, a little bit like a share, then you could use this token as a payment for the people that you create incentives for people to work for the project. We don't have the AIs who are programming and deploying and make promotion for such a project by itself, and hopefully we never have this. But at least at the moment, we are far away from this, and we need the humans who do this work, and to get the humans into their group workflows, we need a token. So we have a called BSQ token, we have a rebranding, so Bitsquare will be rebranded to BISQ, and BSQ stands for BISQ. And it's, for the technical people, it's based on Bitcoin as a color coin. For the non-technical, it doesn't matter, it's just like any other cryptocurrency token. And then the people who are working for the project, I call them contributors, because it can be anything which contributes to the project. It can be a developer, can be a person who do promotion, who do translations, whatever it is. Anything which creates value for the project is considered a contribution, and they make a request for their compensation. So they say, okay, I've done this and that, and I want this amount of BSQ token for my work. Like a normal freelance work, you say, okay, I've done this and I want this amount of euro, and here is the token. And with the market, the token can be traded on the market, so it will have a real value, and they can calculate it, how much tokens they want for the work, and make such a request in the application, and will be published over the peer-to-peer network, so all the others can see this request. And that's a monthly cycle. So at the end of the month, like in a normal job, there is a payday, and then before the payday, the people make their requests. So they say, okay, I've done this work, I want this money. Then there is a voting process, a few days. All the stakeholders, all those who have already tokens, have the right to vote on this request and other parameters, but that's also important here. So they can decide, okay, that was a good contribution, the amount what he requests is also fair and correct, so I accept it or I decline it. When the contributor reach more than 50% at the end of the voting process, his request got accepted. Otherwise, he maybe asked for too much money, or the quality of the work was not good enough, and probably he will leave or so. And of course, in reality, there is a lot of communication in between, like in a normal job. I mean, you start a little bit working, and you're communicating with the community, with the team, with the main people, and then you figure out how, if you have good chances for your work to get paid for this. And the contributors who get accepted, they have the right to issue new tokens. They are basically printing new money. Like in Bitcoin, the miners for securing the network have the right to issue new Bitcoin at every block. Every 10 minutes they are created new Bitcoins. And in this system, the people who work for the project have the right to print new money in the amount what they have requested. So when somebody has worked for the value of whatever, 5,000 euro, and at the end of the month he has the right to issue new tokens in the value of 5,000 euro for his work.
Sorry, is this proof of stake?
Yeah, I would not compare it too much with other altcoins in that way, because for them, they need to secure the blockchain with proof of stake or proof of work. As we are sitting on Bitcoin, we get all the security for Bitcoin. So we don't have this problem that we need to build a blockchain and secure the blockchain that's done by Bitcoin. Yeah. We can design our currency just for the purpose of the working relationships, and it's voted. It has something in common with this, but I think it's also different.
The concept and the idea is quite.
Yeah, it's based on the stake at the beginning at least. I mean, later it will be then based on reputation or on work. The more contributors worked over time, the more influence he will get in voting. That will be in a later phase. In the beginning it will be only by stake because it's easier, but I think it's just better because it's not always said that the richest people are the best decision makers. But it's more likely that the people who have worked most for the projects are good decision makers. So it's an improvement, and then there will be other improvements in future, but we start with that. Is it an important question? Sorry, it's for sure important for you, but could we keep it for the end, because otherwise we get lost maybe too much in the flow. Yeah, the BSQ tokens can be traded over Bitsquare, so like any other cryptocurrency, you can trade it against Bitcoin. And the traders, that's an important part for the economy. The traders, they pay usually a fee, a trading fee in Bitcoin for the service what the project provides. And it's also necessary for protection, for spam protection. Normally it's in Bitcoin, the trading fee. But they can choose now with the DAO to pay the trading fee in BSQ. And when they use the BSQ token for paying the trading fee, then it's they get a huge discount, like 90%. So it's much cheaper for them to use the BSQ token for paying the trading fee. And with that, they have the incentive to buy tokens on the market. So they get the cheap discount fee. And with that, we're creating an economic cycle that they are creating the demand. And the people who are working, they maybe need to sell a few of the tokens because they need to pay the rent in euro. Usually people don't accept BSQ tokens so far. So they have to sell a little bit, they're creating the supply, and the others are creating the demand, and so the market starts. And yeah, we're starting in different phases. At the beginning, probably in 1 month, is the first phase where we have a Genesis distribution where all the people who have worked so far for the project get their percentage of the initial distribution. So we put in all the money what we have on the donation address at 25 Bitcoin, and we are distributing this as a kind of like base capital to all the contributors who have worked for the project. And initially the value would be basically 0, but because it's technically Bitcoin, it cannot be below the Bitcoin. So the total value of the project cannot be below the 25 Bitcoin, which is about 40,000 euro. But it's very low, of course. 40,000 euro for this project would be frustrating when it doesn't move up. The market then, as soon as the trading starts, the market will decide what will be the real value. Yeah, that's the usual forces of the market. So the contributors initially get a kind of like a percentage of the total value, and then how much it will be really in Bitcoin or euro will be decided by the market price of the token. And then in the second phase, we implementing this decentralized issuance and voting, like I explained before, that we have this monthly cycle where there's this contribution requests and then the voting, and then the accepted contribution requests have the right to issue new tokens. And the third phase, the decentralized arbitration will be implemented. It's still not really decentralized, because I'm the arbitrator, because yeah, it's complex, as it was on the roadmap a long time, but it needs quite a little bit of effort for development, so it's still not implemented. But with the DAO, we have now a solution to make it really open and decentralized, so anybody can become an arbitrator. They have basically to lock up some security deposit in BSQ token in the network, and when they would cheat, when an arbitrator would steal the money by colluding with one of the traders, then there would be a voting. The cheated person could then make a request for confiscation, and then when the community vote for the confiscation with a very high percentage, something like 80%, and then there would be a kind of a hard fork, and then the users also need to upgrade the software, so the users also have a say in that. Only when the users also agree and it's clear that it was a completely clear scam, then it will be really confiscated and his BSQ tokens become invalid and he has lost a lot of money. So that's a security protection to avoid that the arbitrator can scam, because when anybody anonymously can become an arbitrator, you have no security basically. So we have to take care of that. This is secure in a way. Then the fourth phase will be this reputation, where the people who work for the project, the more they work, the more weight they will have in the voting. So from first, where it's 100% stake-based, it moves to probably 70% reputation-based, and 30% will only be the weight of the stake. So more that the workers are the managers of the project, a very communistic concept. They are owning the project by the work, by the earning the tokens, and also make the decisions. But probably that will turn over time. We will see that also have its flaws or its problems, because often developers are not the best decision makers, or they are not interested to do this management job. So probably it will need then, for sure it will need some further improvement, like delegation system, where you can delegate your voting right to somebody who is specialist on this. And yeah, it's then open for further development, but we don't want to go too far. That's enough work for the next year. And yeah, I hope I gave a rough idea about this version of the DAO. For me, basically this idea of the DAO is this very basic idea of the DAO, not a special implementation, what we are doing or what anybody else is doing. Just this basic idea that you enable that people work together, create some value together. You need, of course, to create some value for somebody else outside of the group, otherwise it will not have any value for others. And then some tokens, some cryptocurrencies representing this value, it becomes tradable, it becomes exchangeable with others. With that, you're enabling completely new structures, how people can work together, create some value, and out of the classical narrow system where you have to go to your boring job and do this boring work just to get to pay your rent. You can do your stuff, and when is what you're doing, like many open source developers who are creating fantastic stuff which has a lot of value for other people, but it's missing this economic link that they can make the living, that they can get paid for it. And you can apply this to anything. When musicians are doing great music and other people who value what they're doing, yeah, they can make such a DAO, represent their tokens, what they're creating in a token. And if there is somebody who says, yeah, that has a value for me, and at some point it becomes a monetary value, especially when they are creating a real utility, when you have some service where people have a clear utility, then it's easy. People pay a service fee for this, and then it becomes valuable, and they have a new form of income and a model to work together in a decentralized, in a way which is outside of the classical structure of hierarchy and bosses and whatever. Here, you can design it and program it whatever you like. I mean, I design it in a way that the people who are working on it are the main actors, but of course other people might design it in a different way for different circumstances. But it's money, and the way how people are working together is now open for construction, open for design. It's like any other data, what we used as programmers to play around with data and program whatever you like. It's not possible with money and economic models. And I think that's pretty revolutionary in my opinion, and it might shape our society much more like any political party, hopefully. And yeah, if you want to learn more about Bitsquare, just visit our webpage at bitsquare.io. As I said, we are doing a rebranding soon, probably in 2 weeks. Then it will be BISQ.io, the new domain. And if you have any question, then just start.
You said you're issuing new BSQ tokens for those who work for the DAO.
Yeah.
And you can only trade those tokens on Bitsquare.
Yeah.
So you're getting more and more BSQ tokens. Isn't there a great inflation?
I think, yeah, so there are workers, they are creating more and creating inflation. On the other side, the more users who are using the system, they are creating deflation, because the fee payment, I have not explained this, the fee payment is, we are kind of like burning the tokens, but it's not a destruction, we are just paying the BSQ tokens to miners, so they are losing the value of BSQ tokens, but they are still always Bitcoin, so they are not really destroyed. But we are taking the value of BSQ out of the circulation, and by destroying a value of BSQ, we are basically distributing to every stakeholder, because when there is less total supply, everybody who holds some tokens is more rich, a little bit more rich afterwards. So it's a easy distribution to everybody. Conceptually, it's the same, like the fee would be paid per percentage to everybody. When you hold 50% of the tokens, you get 50% of the fee. But that would be technically complicated, and also legally, because then you have security laws issues. And so with that model, we are achieving a similar goal, but much easier. And basically it's a play after, I mean, when we just put in a lot of work and we don't get more users, okay, then the project fails because we are investing too much and we don't have success. and then it's bad managed, and then probably somebody else will fork it or whatever, or if the project will die. So the investment, but that's like in every company. At the beginning, you have to invest much more, like you get out into the revenue. The first few years in normal startups, you are not counting that you can cover the costs with the revenue. You're investing more and then hope in the future that you get more revenue like you have invested. So when we are reaching the size of local Bitcoin, the inflow of the trading fees would be already much, much more like what we could spend per month. So yeah, wherever we get in the middle, that's an open question, of course, how this develops, but that's the success of the project. So.
If you contribute, you can request to get new tokens for you, yeah? Could be a contribution also that you invest Bitcoins, for example?
To invest
To
Bitcoin?
invest Bitcoin. So you contribute 20 Bitcoins?
Yeah.
Is
It's
this
basically not.
possible?
No, it's basically not in the plan.
You can donate.
I think it could have legal issues probably also.
You
That's
can
one.
buy on the market.
Sorry? You can buy it on the market, yeah, that's the form of investing basically. I mean, when you think the project will be successful and the price will rise, then the easiest way to invest is to buy it on the market. If you're right, then you make the money, otherwise you have donated to the project.
Did I understand you correctly? Sorry, but is this token only tradable on Bitsquare or?
At the beginning, yes. I mean, it's open. Anybody could implement the protocol and the peer-to-peer system. Also, it's not so trivial like with other altcoins that they just run the full node and then have their altcoin for trading in Polynex or wherever. It's a little bit more effort, so that's why I don't assume that in the first year probably Bitsquare will be the only platform where it can be traded. But it's all open, everybody can implement it. And
are you using your own colored coins protocol or is it?
yeah, it's our own because I looked into others, but what we need with this decentralized issuance was not possible in others like Counterparty. And also I didn't want to introduce other dependencies to other projects or companies or technologies like Ethereum. And I could do everything on Bitcoin, it was not super complicated. Much easier like a normal color coin, they have general purpose and I only implemented special purpose, what we need and not more. So it's, I think, you wanted to also.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if I understood you correctly about your arbitration procedure. It seemed quite severe that you need, you said you are going to have to fork with one of your arbitrators that you found.
Yeah.
Isn't there a way to find another way to handle it?
I mean, I don't assume that the arbitrator will fail because, I mean, he has to put in a lot of money, something like 50 Bitcoin, so really a lot of money, because he basically could steal quite a lot when he would collude. He could take all the offers and then try to steal this. So minimum this or a double of this amount he has to lock up. So I don't assume that people will risk to scam and then lose 100,000 euro or 200,000 euro.
But you could make the ability of the arbitrator to take on new arbitration tasks that could be limited according to his deposit. Or
Yeah.
you could basically avoid the situation altogether by making that function of the deposit.
Because there will be additional, there will be a limit of 20 cases, and there will be additionally a mediator in between who has no key, who is only the customer care. Because most of the cases are just customer care cases. There was until yet no single case of a real dispute that somebody said, I sent you the money and the other no, I never received, that never happened. So there was no scam attempts yet. It's usually, software bugs, banking problems, unfortunately a lot, especially in America, and usability problems. That's the usual stuff. So 90% of these cases can be handled by normal customer care, what we call the mediator. That will be the first step. And only if the mediator cannot solve it, then it goes to the arbitrator. So there are very rare cases. And he only can take 20 cases for legal reasons, because then it's not interpreted as financial intermediary, because the regulatory bodies don't understand multisig and just apply the existing stuff, which is somehow a little bit similar, and then interpret this as this. And there is, at least in Switzerland, this limit with 20 cases, then it's not professional, so we stick with that. So an arbitrator can maximum do 20 cases. With that we get the security protection because he could not steal more like 20 trades. And every trade has a trade limit, so the total amount what he could steal is very limited. And this, I don't count that it will ever happen, the confiscation. Just to have it in place, makes it secure that he don't even try it. And the implementation of such a confiscation could be done automatically also by a peer network or so. But I think to force that the users need really to agree as well by updating, then the users are kind of like voting also and agreeing that this confiscation was really valid, because confiscating money is something serious, so I don't want to take this lightly, that it could happen easily, and by distributing it to the stakeholders you make, or by taking it out of circulations, you make all stakeholders more rich, so they have incentive to confiscate theoretically from the economic side. But the users are not the stakeholders, so they have, it's just adding a second layer of security that this confiscation is only applied in completely clear cases where there's no doubt. And then the hard fork is just a normal technical hard fork, everybody agrees, and if not, then we have to figure out what was the problem, why it came there, like in Ethereum with the hard fork, they made probably mistakes in the process, and then we have to learn and make it better next time. I think he was first.
You said the support coin solution is self-created. Is it open source?
Yeah, it's everything open source. Yeah.
Okay. And additional, you think about opening it up for other organizations to create their own DAO?
At the moment, not, because it's already a lot of effort to just make it for my special use cases. I don't know the other use cases, so to make it by default general purpose would lead maybe to solutions which would not really fit future use cases. When it's successful, I expect that people might copy it, and maybe after 3 or 4 copies somebody makes a general purpose solution out of it, or myself. But I think at the moment it would be premature, and I think that was one of the problems of that DAO. They wanted to make a general purpose solution for everything and didn't have even one good use case. I mean, their use cases were idiotic in my opinion. To make a decentralized investment fund where everybody who has no clue about investment make a decision. Whatever, don't get lost to that. It's not planned yet. It might be interested in future, but it's not really on the roadmap. But might be.
How would things like margin trading and lending work in these platforms?
Actually, in the next release, we add some option trading in a way, because the security, and that happens sometimes when the price volatility is very high and you are in a trade and you have 2 or 3 days time for doing the transfer, you can decide the price has moved against me. It's cheaper to me to lose the security deposit, like to continue to trade, because now it's maybe better to trade somewhere else with the actual new price. That's unfortunately happened quite often, that people in such volatile times decide to not to violate the contract, and then they are losing their deposit, but it's still cheaper, like continuing the trade. And basically we cannot really avoid this. It's only the height of the deposit. It's at the moment 0.03 Bitcoin, which is 60 euro. It's not small. But even then, when the Bitcoin price goes up 100 euro a day, it's still cheaper to cancel a trade. And as we can't really avoid it, we make it a feature. So in the next version, the offer maker, when you create the offer, you define yourself how much Bitcoin you want as a security deposit from the buyer. Because only the buyer has this ability, because he can decide if he pays the fiat today or tomorrow, or wait longer or don't pay it at all. And you can define it to whatever, very small, then it's probably easier that somebody takes the offer, or you can define it to half a Bitcoin, and then the Bitcoin price has to move really high to that he's still gaining something. And actually that's a kind of like option trading, where the buyer has the option to continue the trade. When the volatility is too high, then he has a kind of like security to not lose more money, like the security deposit what he has locked in.
But option trading would be something different to margin trading, wouldn't it?
I'm not so 100% familiar with this trading stuff. I mean, margin trading basically, I think, is
Leveraged, also wenn du einen Kredit, if you take up an extra amount of money and take what you bought as a security and thereby get the right to get more budget for your next trade. So this is what you are doing.
We leverage basically
but
more than
I think it doesn't work well because it's kind of like we don't have any fractional reserve stuff here. So all the money what's in the game has to exist really and has to be locked
the
up.
lenders are people, like, you know, it's not a bank or not a...
Yeah, I know. But with margin trading, with volatility, it gets quickly very complicated that you're locking up the maximum loss, but maybe the price moves and you have to adapt all the time this, or it gets a call.
And the exchanges solve this by monitoring your accounts, and if you are if you would receive a margin call, which means that you have to get in some real fiat money to top off your account, then what the exchange does, she unwinds your deal and forces you to reduce your exposure.
As I personally have not thought too much in this other trading options, but if it's possible in decentralized in this model, it might come someday, or it will come someday. One thing, because Bitsquare is not really suited for speculators, day traders who want to make very quick, because with the fiat transfer, it takes some time. I mean, when you're trading altcoins, it's faster, but you still have to wait for the blockchain confirmations and so on. So it's more for the people who want to get in Bitcoin and to hold the Bitcoin or the euro, and not the speculators who just want to make.
But even then, wouldn't you have to wait? It's not instant trade, right? You have to deposit, then you have to wait until it's confirmed.
Depends on the payment system. So there are instant payment systems like OKB or many other in England.
Yeah, but I'm talking about peer-to-peer. It's not an instant trade between peer-to-peer. It's like whenever the trade is possible, or how?
Yeah,
That's
but the minimum time is the blockchain confirmation of Bitcoin. Of course, it can be also 5 seconds, or it can be half an hour in bad luck. Usually it's 10 minutes.
So they can trade before they even deposit the money?
No, they have to deposit the money, and when somebody takes your offer, the trade starts, and then it usually takes minimum 10 minutes, and then it depends when the other peer is online and do the transaction immediately.
So it's not automated. That way it has to be manually.
No, so with altcoins it will be automated in future.
Yeah.
Now, with fiat, it will not work well because most banks don't offer APIs, so you cannot send over the application their fiat money, you cannot check their receipt. They have not discovered that APIs are used since 20 years in IT, but now they discovered blockchains, everything will be good. So, unfortunately with the banks, it will not really work out.
That's the API, if you have any other trading platform, can you connect the API to this decentralized?
We are working at the moment at APIs, but to automate the whole fiat trade, that probably will never be really. Maybe with some special, like OKB, they offer API, some special who are more modern. We've not left the last 20 years, sorry, it's not a stop with the bank bashing. But in the broad, I mean, there are so many banks, you get crazy when you start to try to support the banks. That's a nightmare. That's what I don't do anymore. And with altcoins, it's possible because you only need to look up the altcoin explorer to see if the transaction has happened on the altcoin, and that will come someday. Then you can automate it, but it still will take some time. And to satisfy speculators, we will probably work on a decentralized contract for different solution. So you are basically betting on the price movement. You say, I put 1 Bitcoin into it, that tomorrow the price is $2,500, and the opposite, and then who is the winner gets out the money. And that you don't move Bitcoin or euro, you're just betting, and one gets the Bitcoin out, and you need just a reliable price feed, which is problematic as well. But at least in big currencies, it's somehow manageable.
So 2 questions. First one is about transaction fees, mining fees. So today I was really amazed that I have to pay some quite substantial mining fees. So in a normal case, when 2 people are making a trade, who's paying for these fees, or both, or is it coming from a security deposit, or?
When they have to fund when you make an offer, you have to put the money, reserve it in your wallet for the transaction, for the trade. So the mining fees are part of this. Both users are paying the mining fee, and unfortunately, it wasn't a problem at all half a year ago. It was
how do you know the
like
mining
10
fee in
cents.
advance? I mean, trade could take 2 days and then.
So in the next version, currently we have fixed mining fee, which is very problematic, and we got a lot of issues the last weeks with this crazy stuff that's going on. In the next version, which hopefully goes out in 2 weeks, there will be a fee estimation, so we always know what's the best fee for getting into the next block very quickly. But as it's a little bit more complicated, the maker will only pay one mining fee for the offer, and then the taker pays 3 times the mining fees for the other transactions, because the offerer does not know in future when it will be taken and what's the mining fee at this time. Only the taker knows this when it takes the offer. It's one instant where the other transaction gets created, so he has to pay then the higher amount. But it's also help us that creating an offer is cheaper, like taking an offer, so we get more, the offer books more filled because more incentive. But the mining fee, unfortunately, for the people who don't know it, in Bitcoin, 1 or 2 years ago it was basically nothing. It was 1 or 5 cent, euro cent. A year ago it started maybe 10 cents, was still nothing. Half year ago it was maybe 40 cents, still okay. 3 months ago it was nearly already €1. I think today it's already €2, and maybe in 2 months it's already €10 when it goes on like this. So it's really a problem. People don't want to spend so much on fees when they're doing a trade. So we are looking for alternatives, and probably we cannot do much more like to move over that we are building a network of exchanges. So Bitsquare will be for Bitcoin, but then there will be some for Litecoin, for Dash, for Namecoin, for whatever, all the currencies which are relevant and which are easy to implement, because unfortunately some which have completely different technology like Ethereum or Monero, that will take, we will also plan this to work on this, but that will take a few months to implement it. With the others which are basically clones from Bitcoin, it's not so much effort and we can do it in reasonable time. So that's basically a solution that when Bitcoin becomes too expensive from the mining fee, then people probably will use a Litecoin version out of it, and or any others. We will.
Can I ask one follow-up question? So the BSQ token is based on a Bitcoin code.
Yeah.
So basically, once you want to make a trade with another person selling or buying BSQ tokens, you have to make an actual Bitcoin transaction, meaning that you have to pay quite substantial mining fees. Would that be a problem?
Just another input in the transaction. It's not the extra transaction. Just extra input.
Yeah, sure, but to make a trade, you have to make a Bitcoin transaction.
Yeah,
Which costs you 2, 3, 5, 10 euros for this
If
transaction.
you work on Bitcoin. If you
Yeah,
work on
but you
Litecoin,
said-
When we move to Litecoin, everything will be Litecoin. There is no Bitcoin there. So also the DAO will be based on Litecoin.
So there would be a BSQ token based on Litecoin.
on Litecoin, yeah.
Okay.
So
I see.
there will be, the DAO is an integral part of the whole project. So basically it's cloned to another coin. We have to change something in the code to make it work with another coin, and then everything is there. Then you can trade Litecoin as the base currency to Bitcoin, and on the other you can trade Bitcoin as the base currency to Litecoin, and interesting arbitrage between probably.
This mean you have then the DAO multiple times for each coin, or you close it on Bitcoin and open it on Litecoin?
There will be separate versions of the DAO for Litecoin, and I mean we are still in the process to figure out all the details and to make a solid concept around it, because it's just the last days that we get really more and more troublesome. They have to think for alternatives. It was not planned months ago. So it's a little bit still open, but the basic idea is to offer different base currencies which are cheaper and which are kind of like a solution at the moment, because unfortunately SegWit gets blocked by this fantastic company called Bitmain. I call it Batmain, but nobody's following me this rebranding suggestion. I think it's
I think we anyway have planned an open space. So basically, we are collecting various topics you want to talk about. So if you want to continue talking about Bitsquare, that might be one of the topics you're putting in, and Manfred can ask you further questions. Our open space master, as always, is Mario. Mario organizes this workshop. Sorry, I just want to. So please give Manfred a great applause. I didn't say that. So when I met him first time, it was last year in September, right? Yeah. In Prague. So there, I told you about this nice conference over there. So you don't have to go there. There are just cool people there. So it's very Bitcoin and all kind of things. So it's very interesting. And it was very nice of him to introduce me to a couple of people in Prague, which are kind of very well known in the Bitcoin space. So Room 77 and to Andreas Antonopoulos and you know the guys you kind of know when you start looking into the scene. And yeah, so we stayed in touch, and therefore I was really grateful that you could join us today and give us this talk about BISQ. So we have to get used to this new name. And well, it might happen that you have to answer a couple more questions in the open space. So thank you once more.
Yes, thank you for the invitation.
Okay.